think that people who are experiencing schizoid personality disorder or schizoid adaptations are gonna relate to themes of being trapped, restrained, imprisoned, or restricted. And this is because of the schizoid events. And I spoke about the schizoid events in other videos, and I was saying that it's a psychological and emotional barrier that creates a divide between us and the external world. So what happens is that our true self gets sequestered or separated or locked away inside of ourselves, and it can't communicate with the external world. So it can feel to some degree like we're like imprisoned like inside of ourselves, and that there's no way for us to escape. Not that we necessarily want to escape, but basically that there's a line that we can never like really cross. I think that a lot of times as well with the communication issue that comes with this, what it means is that people don't really get to know the true us. And so we can often get treated in a way that is out of alignment with how we perceive ourselves. And that is because we have an inner person that never really gets past the surface. So people aren't able to really judge us like for who we really are. They can only judge us for, I don't know, whatever we show on the surface, which isn't really us. And this is where like the isolation comes from, and the feeling of being trapped and imprisoned, shut in and shut out from society. Now the issue comes when we want to communicate with the outside world. We want to show people for whatever reason that who we are, but we can't. The thing is, I would say that with the schizoid defense, there's more motivation or pull or, and what's the word? There's more inclination to not show people who we are than there is like to show who we are, because in many ways, by people knowing who we are, it makes us like vulnerable to attack. I'd say that a lot of schizoids find that a lot of other people in the world can be quite manipulative in their intentions, and by giving away information about who we are, that just like feeds into other people's like ability to manipulate us, which is something that we don't want. So we can put us in a dichotomy between wanting to be known so that we can be treated according to who we are, and then really not wanting to be known because we don't want to be manipulated. I would say that it does vary, but there are some schizoids who have the potentiality to be manipulative, but in general, I'd say that a lot of schizoids don't have any motivation to manipulate people, and the reason is because people usually use each other for social reasons, and if a person doesn't have any real social inclination, then they'll be less likely to want to use someone for social reasons. Also, people tend to use each other for a foothold in the external world in some way. And if you don't really have much interest in participating in the external world, then you're not really going to want to use people as a means to try to get ahead, or I don't know, for some sort of external gain. With the schizoid defense, it will put a limit on how much value we place on external things, because we're very introverted and our love objects tend to be inside our heads. And due to this, we don't have so much value on external things, which is why I would say that schizoids tend to have lack interest in activities and have interest in few activities, because activities require us to interact with the external world, and we're like highly introspective, so it's not really something that necessarily want to do. Back to the theme of being trapped. I was thinking about things like snails, tortoises. I think that's the main one. Snails and tortoises. You could include a turtle, but that's just like the same as a tortoise, really. And they to me, they represent like a hermit or someone that's inside their home a lot. And a lot of schizoids, they tend to be like that, like not really too interested in too much external engagement. And when I see like the turtle and the snail, and they can just go inside their home just like that, and they're safe, I think that it could be a good icon or representation of schizoidism. The theme of being imprisoned, it's like there's like a benefit, I think, because it makes somebody less fearful of imprisonment. Because if you're like already imprisoned, then you don't really fear being imprisoned. It's kind of like you've imprisoned yourself. I think that this is what is also linked to anhedonia, in a sense that by being detached from the outside world, your desires become detached. So if it's like, oh, you don't get a lot of pleasure out of activities, it's because, like, if you don't have a lot of attachment to the world and activities require interaction with the world, then you're not going to have like a really strong desire to gain pleasure from the outside world. And the pleasure is going to come, if any, from within. Now, the issue with the pleasure coming from within is that for a lot of people, they relate pleasure to strong emotional feelings. And with schizoids, we don't have free access to strong emotional feelings. Our emotions tend to be muted. So for that reason, we can't really rely on emotions as a source of pleasure, because sometimes there's going to be some emotional disconnectivity. Now, this is something that's going to vary from schizoid to schizoid. So there's some schizoids who could have quite strong feelings and quite an emotionally, maybe you could say turbulent inner life. And then there's other schizoids who just really don't have a lot of emotional connectivity. So, like, they're gonna feel more like dead inside or empty and not very feeling. Now, I spoke about this before. Even people that feel empty inside and not a lot of feeling, it doesn't actually mean that there aren't any emotions going on, but what it is, it's caused by a psychological disconnection from emotion, and this is something that can be part of the schizoid defense. That, like, if emotions have been troublesome for the schizoid, especially like in childhood, then these emotions, we're going to go through the process of disconnecting from these emotions, and so it becomes an ingrained habit. And then this is when what happens is that you lose the bad emotions. Like, say you're feeling like a lot of pain and stress, and you don't want to feel that no more. It's like the disconnecting is going to help with that. But it's like throwing out the baby in the bathwater. It's like you lose the bad feelings, but then you also lose the good feelings. Yeah. And then you got the schizoids who feel their feelings like quite in a muted way. So there's an awareness of the feeling, but it's just really toned down. And that's also part of the restricted affect, like, which means that there's not so much emotional expression. Some of us, we kind of like hype up our feelings, like we act like we feel more than we do, so that we can try to like get some sort of level with society and what's going on there. And that becomes just like standard after a while. It's not even going to really require too much effort, but it does depend on the person. Some people are more naturally inclined to act, whereas others not really so much. You know, got different energy levels on output, but still, yeah. Imprisonment. It can be very isolating sometimes, because it's like you can never really fully connect with the outside world, like in the way that most like sort of neurotypical people do. So there's limitations, being trapped inside yourself. So I don't really know. I think that's it really for now. So I was just doing a self-portrait, we're going to finish this another time.